Welcome to the From My Stand podcast with Matt Hinkle. Whether you are an avid hunter, a novice, or someone interested in the sport, Matt has a unique perspective to share. Sit back, relax, and kick your boots up as Matt shares what he's seeing from his stand.
Hi friends, thanks for joining us today. I'm your host, Matt Hinkle, and welcome back to the kitchen. So this channel is not really a cooking channel. It's not really a cooking show, but sometimes we do cooking on the show. This is an outdoor hunting podcast, but it is July. It's the off season, and we've done several episodes. In fact, you can go on our YouTube channel and track down all of our cooking shows. We've done how to make wild game jerky, how to make a roast, how to make the perfect venison burger, how to make breakfast sausage out of ground turkey breast. So, we've done a lot of cooking episodes, and it dawned on me that we have never done an episode yet on how to make the perfect venison steak. And that's what we're going to do in this episode. We're going to talk about making the perfect venison steak and what steps you need to take and how to go about doing that. So the first thing, and we're going to cut right to the chase. So the first thing that you need to do is start with a quality product. What I've got here is Backstrap venison off of a whitetail buck that my son shot last year. This venison has been in the freezer for probably about 10 months. It's a really good cut of meat. It's the backstrap. And so that deer was actually processed right here on this kitchen island. We do a lot of our own processing right here on the island in the kitchen. Now, of course, we skin the animal outside, quarter it outside, but we'll bring the quarters and the saddle and all of that right in here to the house and process it right here on the island in the kitchen. Now, last hunting season, we did not have the podcast up and running. So the last deer we butchered, we didn't have this channel going yet. This upcoming season, whatever we do, we're going to take you along with you and show you step by step how to do it. So in all likelihood, we'll have some episodes this fall on how to butcher your own wild game. But a good steak starts with a good cut of meat, and we know exactly where this venison came from. The backstrap, if you've ever done this yourself, you know that on a whitetail deer, you're going to end up with two backstrap pieces about this long. And then what we usually do is cut them into 4 to 5 pieces about like this. Now this piece would have been right in the middle somewhere of the backstrap. And this, you can see how it kind of comes to a tip. This would have been the tip. And so this is going to make a really, really good steak. Now, the grain of the meat runs this way. It's going to run along that back strap. And so what we want to do to make our steak medallions is cut against the grain. And I usually cut, and I'm going to go ahead and sharpen this knife up. You want to have a good butcher's knife, a good kitchen knife. You want to make sure that it's really sharp. And so we're going to begin by making sure that this thing is sharp. And then what I do is I usually cut my steak into about 3/4 to 1 inch pieces. So I'm going to cut right there. And then I'm going to cut right there. And then I'll cut right there. And then these two here will be a little thinner than the rest. But I'm going to cut right there. And then on this one, I'm going to cut right there, cut right there. And then I'll leave the rest of that whole, and we'll just grill that one as it is. Now, you want to get as much Silverskin as you can off of your steak. That is Silverskin right there. And there's a little bit there. Now, the truth is, you're never going to get it all off of there. And so I know some of you might be watching this and you might say, you're leaving way too much Silverskin on. I can tolerate the Silverskin that I've left on there. But what I'm saying is get it to your own taste. You are going to want to get rid of the Silverskin as best you can. But if you see a little bit of Silverskin on this steak, just understand I always admit that I can't get all of it off. And so I leave a little bit on there. Now, I'm not going to work with this piece just yet. I'll probably do that off camera. I don't want to crowd my pan too much. I kind of want to show you an ideal situation. But I'm going to go ahead and get this. This is a 12-inch Wagner cast iron skillet. It's one of my favorites. I'm going to go ahead and get it heating up. You want to get the cast iron skillet really hot. Maybe not all the way on high, but certainly like 3/4 heat. And let's get that thing heating up while we get our meat prepped. I'm going to make 2 medallions on camera. I'll make the rest of them off camera, but I'll do 2 of them on camera because I don't want to get too overwhelmed and too much going on at one time. But you cut your you cut your medallions. We've already washed our hands good. We'll deal with the rest of that later. So these are the steaks that you're left with. Now, to make a good venison steak, you want to pat them dry. Also, before you work with your venison and cook it, you want to get it to about room temperature. So I removed this stuff out of the refrigerator about a half an hour ago. And it's been kind of settling into room temperature now for just a little while. And I'll tell you what, I'll go ahead and make 3 of them. That's not going to that will nowhere near fill that pan up. Let's go ahead and do one more. And I'll do the rest of those off camera. You just kind of pat them dry. You want them at room temperature. By the way, for tips and tricks about how to make the perfect venison steak, I really like the Meat Eater, Steve Rinella's cookbooks. He's got the indoor cooking, the outdoor cookbook, and then a whole guide on hunting, butchering, and cooking wild game. There's tons of good tips and tricks about how to make the perfect venison steak. Now, tonight I'm not going to go crazy with seasoning. I do it differently at different times, but a real basic seasoning that's easy to replicate is simply salt. A lot of times I do coarse kosher salt. I didn't do that tonight. I did just a regular fine salt, but I do 2 parts salt, 1 part black pepper, 1 part garlic salt. And that is a pretty good seasoning blend. It's very basic. It's very easy to do. I'm not going to use all that salt, but I make a little more than I use. Then you're going to find out if you watch me cook much in the kitchen. I'm not much on measuring. What I like to do is just sprinkle all sides, and I'll coat it a little heavier if I have a coarser salt. Now, I want to be careful with this not to over salt because I'm using a little more of a fine salt and fine seasoning. And so I don't want to get too carried away with it. But you want to get both sides coated. Just go ahead and get that done. If the cuts are bigger, you can do the edges. These aren't real big cuts, so we're not going to get too carried away. All right, as you can see, we got our pan smoking. So we're ready to put, you can use about anything you want. You can use beef tallow. Sometimes that's a good idea when you're dealing with venison because venison can tend to be a little bit dry. But you want to get your pan at a high heat, and then you want to put some sort of a high temperature, high smoke tolerance oil. I'm using a canola oil tonight, but woo, it's popping. But I've used vegetable oil before. You can use different things. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. But you want to get an oil heating up in there. And then you're probably going to want to use some tongs. If the steak is big enough, you can use your bare hands. But the first thing you're going to want to do is sear everything. Get a sear on everything. Okay? So I'm going to throw it in there. And get a nice pan sear on every side of this steak. Some people would call this like a crust. Got it going on that side. Go ahead and flip it to the other side. With these little venison steak medallions, you got to be careful. It's real easy to overcook them and dry them out. Also, don't forget about your sides. You want to take your tongs or whatever you're using. You want to sear all sides. Again, not everybody's going to do it exactly the same way, but you want to get every side nice and seared so you get a good crust all the way around. Okay? See how good that's looking, man? I tell you, these are going to be good. I think my cameraman's mouth is starting to water. Okay. Another good way to make venison steaks is to grill them outside. It's summertime right now, and it is a fun and very acceptable way to do it. Just go put it on the grill outside. But that doesn't make for as good of an episode. That's a little more basic. Giving you a little more of the chef technique tonight. All right, once you have that thing, I probably put a little too much oil in it. That's okay. Once you have that good crust on it, that's what you're looking for right there. It's a good pan sear. Then what we can do is turn our heat way down and get it to the desired internal temperature. Now these medallions are not real thick, so I'm not gonna measure the internal temperature. These just aren't thick enough to do that. But I like to get them to about a medium, cooked to about a medium. Now, I always have a couple of pieces of butter nearby, and we're not doing it in this episode. I'm trying to keep it real simple, but you can put onions in here, you can put mushrooms in here, you can put peppers in here, and sometimes that makes for a really good flavor on the steak. Now, as the butter's melting, I put a little of the seasoning, not much, just a little bit in the butter so that we can make a little bit of a braise in there. And then we're going to get us a spoon out. I almost forgot. You need a spoon. Not that one. Use this one. And while it's cooking, you can just use that spoon to constantly be braising these things. You know, you can kind of get your braise, put it on the steak. If you're not careful, it's real easy to overcook venison and dry it out. So we're trying to avoid that. And these aren't going to take very long to cook because they're not real big to start with. Well, you got them in there getting the internal temperature. Just keep on working that juice. Right back on top of the steak. A little bit extra work, but it's well worth it. I don't flip them a lot. You can flip them a little bit, but you don't need to flip them a whole lot. But you know, a big part of hunting is enjoying the rewards of a successful season at the table and in the kitchen. And so I really think that every hunter should know how to do a couple of basic dishes with the game that they hunt. And, you know, it shows respect for the animal, and it's just a real rewarding experience to hunt, kill, process, and then prepare and eat the game that you successfully took. I need to wash my hands. The steak is real easy to make, but you might be at home and you might be saying, Matt, I don't really know how to make my own venison steak, or what do you recommend? Well, this is how I recommend doing it. And again, you can go right outside on your grill, on your patio, and grill it just like you would a steak from Kroger's or anywhere else. But if you learn how to do it inside on a stove in a cast iron skillet, you can really do it all year round, even in the non-grilling season when you got your grill put up. Usually about 3 to 5 minutes per side is enough, and we've given it just about that. Once it's done, I forgot to get a plate out. You get me a plate. Once it's done, and I think these are probably pretty close. You can move them around. That must be a hotter spot right there. That one looks a little more done than that one. I wish you could smell through the camera, because I'm sure this smells pretty good. Now, I don't know if it does or not, because I can't smell. I lost my sense of smell in 2010. Haven't been able to smell since. But I know that I always like the smell of deer, or of steak, particularly venison steak. Once they're done, simply put them on a plate. And you want to let the steak rest for about 5 minutes. You want to let it rest for about 5 minutes. And when it's done resting, if you've done everything right, it should be perfect. Now, we're going to let this rest, and then we'll come right back to it. So we'll see you in just a second. All right, well, the meat has rested for about 5 minutes. So this is what we're left with. And let's see how we did. I like about a medium. I overcooked that just a little bit. Again, you'll have to kind of, it's a little bit of a, takes a little trial and error. So I got a little more to cook over there. I'll serve this to those that like theirs a little more well done. I like it a little less done than that, but I'm sure these are going to be good. Let me see how we did. Oh, yeah. Yeah. My personal favorite cut on the whitetail deer is the backstrap. And so it's really hard to mess them up. This is really good. I'll probably give those next ones maybe a minute less time on each side, just so it's a little less done. But again, you just kind of have to play around with that. Everybody's heats are going to be a little different. It depends on how thick you cut them. But really, really good. You can get they're not dry at all. You can taste the seasoning, and the braise did a really good job keeping it from drying out. So these are really good. Well, hunting season will be here before we know it. It's right in the middle of the summer right now. So if you got any meat in the freezer, get it out and make you something with it. And it'll remind you what you do all this for. I hope you're getting ready for a great fall classic, a great hunting season this fall. I wish you all the success. And thanks for joining us today. I'm your host, Matt Hinkle, and that's how I see it from my stand.
Thank you for listening today. Be sure to tell your buddies and follow us on your favorite podcasting platforms. Y'all take care.